Welcome to the EXCELcast. My name is Mark Clegg. I'm the Director of Entrepreneurship and Career Services here at the University of Michigan School of Music, Theater, and Dance. I'm here with the Akropolis Reed Quintet. Kari Dion, Ryan Reynolds, and Matt Landry, all graduates in the University of Michigan. Great to have you back in town for residency this weekend to work with our Career Expo Day, which we held yesterday. A big concert last night. You'll be doing master classes tomorrow. You taught a course for us.
Yes.
So it's really fantastic just to have alumni come back and share your insights with our current students.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So how did the Akropolis Reed Quintet get started? I mean, I guess, first of all, what is a reed quintet, right? It's 5 people who play reed instruments like this.
It is.
Yes. Not just any 5 people. Hopefully they're musicians, first and foremost. But we have Kari's our clarinetist, Ryan's our bassoonist, I play saxophone, and then we have bass clarinet and oboe as well. And so that is sort of the traditional, if you could say that, reed quintet instrumentation at this point in time.
So where were you in the creation? There was some reed quintet music written before you guys were formed?
Yes.
So how many, obviously the repertoire has really expanded in part through your own efforts, right? Your commissioning projects?
Right.
So how many pieces were there and how many pieces are there now for this ensemble?
Oh my gosh. So I think when we started out, there were more arrangements for reed quintet that the grandfather reed quintet over in Amsterdam called the Halifax Reed Quintet started, and they pieced together a lot of arrangements of older works. They had a lot of new works as well, but the void that we really saw was the new works that we could commission for this instrumentation. So that's kind of where we have found our purpose within the greater reed quintet landscape.
And just last night you premiered a work by another U of M grad, David Bean-Bender.
David Bean-Bender, yes.
Yeah. So a lot of it is about these friendships and I think we think of music school as a time for competition, right? You're trying to beat out your studio mates for who gets to be in the orchestra, who gets to be first chair, and yet you're also an example of sort of collaboration, of really forging relationships, not only among the group, but among composers. Yeah. So that's a different kind of approach. Is that something you sort of fell into, or how did the group come together?
We were all just 5 really good friends. We were freshmen, sophomores, juniors, without the, respective ages, and it was something that we heard the sound of the reed quintet and we were really drawn to it, and we were also really drawn to the idea of doing something different with chamber music, and between our 5 personalities, we're all, very exciting and kind of quirky people, and it just fell into our laps really naturally, and it's something that we feel, both personally attached to, and that it, speaks our personalities very well.
So competitions have been one way which you guys have made a name for yourself, sort of launched yourself. When did you do your first competition?
2010, 11, 2000.
So whatever, you were still students?
We were still
Yes.
students.
And the first competition that we did was the day after a symphony band concert.
It was.
And we didn't have much of a concept at that time of how important it was to have sleep when you're touring, and and eat right and things like that. Because in college, a lot of those things go out the window. And we performed the concert, drove 10 hours straight through the night to Columbia, Missouri, and played.
In the morning.
Played in that, I think we had them push it back as far as they could to the afternoon. Didn't play all that well. Learned a lot in that first experience.
Probably a bonding experience as well.
Oh,
absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. Well, not to mention the car ride and everything like that. So, and then I think the very next year, we really got ourselves together and won the grand prize at that same competition. And that was, I think, that moment. I don't think that moment had too much of an impact professionally immediately, but for us as a group internally and in terms of our effort and commitment, it meant the world. So.
Right. So one of the things we've talked about is how your repertoire has changed over time, and in part what you've learned from doing competitions and sort of finding your own voice as an ensemble. Maybe Ryan, could you talk a little bit about that and the sort of the commissioning aspect of Akropolis has come to the fore?
Sure, yeah. Initially we played a lot of arrangements of older music, and we really loved those. They're very colorful. The ones that existed were very inventive. And there was a small pocket of original reed quintet repertoire, but it was very difficult to find. It was kind of scattered all over the place. You really had to work Google to find things. And with the competitions, we were taking these arrangements, and like Matt said, that first one, it didn't go all that well. And part of that ended up being because of the repertoire. When you go and you compete against string quartets or saxophone quartets, they have this huge dearth of original repertoire that's like really exciting and really good. It's hard to compete with piano music arranged for 5 reed instruments. So that became really important to us to start creating some new works. And like you said, we really took advantage of the fact that like U of M has incredible composition students, and we were lucky enough to be friends with a lot of them just in classes or just around the school. So we started asking them to write us things, trading them performances, chips and cookies and stuff, right? And we got some incredible pieces that we actually still perform 6 years later.
And one of our graduate instructors, David Heaterks, who is now teaches at Oberlin. At that time, he was an instructor here of oral theory, I think, or something like that. He wrote us an incredible piece that we won several competitions performing.
Yes.
And I mean, it was just when we noticed that we could play that repertoire, and not only did people take it very seriously, but it seemed obviously to show people that we had an identity within it, that really told us everything we needed to know about where we were going to go next and what we were going to do.
So for ensembles that are maybe thinking of getting on the competition circuit, I mean, it seems like memorization today is really important. What are sort of the other keys, do you think, to winning a competition? Or what were the things you learned that sort of shifted your gear from?
Yeah,
Well, but-
I think that it was huge for us to just try competitions at the beginning. I think we won competitions in the end because we went to competitions and failed. And we learned so much about ourselves as players, about what was needed to, go up to that professional level of the other ensembles that we saw at these competitions. It made it really clear night and day what we needed to do and how we needed to push ourselves to get to that next level.
Or even not even going to, as a performer, even attending.
Yeah.
I mean, the Fish competition is 3 hours away from here. The groups that win competitions are essentially professionally ready or close, at least artistically. Maybe not in the administrative elements or different things like that, but they're very close or there. And until you go to the competition with people who have worked on their repertoire for a year, 60 minutes of stuff, or memorized it and put that kind of commitment in, you don't really quite, it's really hard to understand. You're sitting there, you're practicing, you're rehearsing real hard, but until you see it, you really have trouble internalizing what that is. And I guess some of the other things, we got feedback from people who had either been panelists or been adjudicators, and asked them while we were preparing our repertoire and choosing our repertoire what they thought. Put your judge hat on and tell us and judge us. This was 6-7 months before we would go.
Yeah,
and
even
we got
everything down to the order of the pieces that we were programming.
how we dressed, how we presented ourselves, what we looked like. We got feedback from very wise people on all that before we ever went. The same way that we get feedback on our website. It was all very important.
Yeah.
So it's an iterative process, something you're constantly improving.
Yes.
It's a long-term commitment to have real success at competitions. It's very rare for a group to show up to their first competition and just sweep the board.
Yeah.
Well, it's one thing we're hoping with Emprise, that our students now will have exposure to really
absolutely.
top groups. And you guys had to go find it yourself.
An incredible thing.
As far as I've heard through the grapevine, it will be incredibly competitive, and the students here in this community, whether they compete or not, will learn a
You'll
tremendous.
see them learn a lot.
Yes,
great.
so that's awesome.
So one of the interesting things about your group, you've just decided to sort of go full-time or try to make it be your main professional income. We talked a lot about the portfolio career as part of our workshop yesterday. But one of the things I think is interesting about Akropolis is you have sort of a portfolio business model, if you will, right? Where you have many different kinds of things you do, each of which will hopefully add up to a full-time salary for the 5 of you in the group. At this point, you have management, but you also do a lot of work on your own. So maybe, Matt, you could tell us a little bit about, so what are the different ways in which Akropolis creates income?
Yeah, well, I'll talk about some of the ones that I'm responsible for, but Kari and Ryan as well are kind of responsible for different elements. Ryan curates and administers and sort of is the project leader of our sheet music collection. And we don't make a tremendous amount of income from it, but it actually really does help to have kind of that sort of ancillary income coming in. And so we sell, I'd say we've sold over 100 pieces of sheet music over the last couple of years. And so that is both a business part of the business model as well as it is a promotional tool
Right.
and things like that. And then some of the other ways, obviously, being recently becoming a nonprofit, we have a small and developing and very tight-knit burgeoning individual donor base, which we're keeping very close friendships with and growing that and finding out what that means to us and how we're developing that right now. We haven't really dived quite in yet to grant funding and what that means for us, but now with our nonprofit status, we're going to start putting a really concerted effort into that kind of funding. I think the lion's share of the income comes from our performance fees, which, like you said, our manager helps out a tremendous amount with. We also have 2 albums out that we sell. Mainly those sell at concerts mostly, but that's a really great way when you think about, and our advice for ensembles would be when you think about, you see a fee, and that's what you're getting, that's what you're given to perform, and then you cut out your travel costs, you cut out your cut to your to the individual members, and you think about what's going back into the group, and then you throw just a few $100 in CD sales, or even $100 in CDs or something like that, and it really, really helps. And we found that that's just a really great way for us to make sure that we're always growing that pot that we have to reinvest in ourselves. And CDs, of course, just like the sheet music, are a great promotional tool as well.
So along with the performance fees, the reason we started doing all of these different endeavors is because we realized very early on that in order to kind of make a name for ourselves, we had to be really unique and had to diversify our offerings. So with the performance revenue side, we also do a large amount of educational outreach, basically kindergarten through the conservatory level, and we have specific programs designed for each of those levels. So when we go to a presenter and we pitch them a concert experience, or our management pitches them a concert experience, we can say, oh, but do you want to do an elementary assembly with 3rd grade students and do an interactive presentation with stories and spoken word and acting out animals and things like that? And the same thing we can do at the college level, which we're starting this program right now called Akropolis Works, which basically we do these mini residencies at universities, and the one here at U of M was our first one, so we're kicking the program off. And the whole idea behind this program is that we can, in over the last 8 years in being together, we have learned so much about how just immensely important it is to have everything outside the music really, really strong, really built up, the business side of everything. And so coming into these colleges that either have no business of music programs or no experience in what all this other stuff is that they need to get gigs and make it as a performer, we feel that we can come in and shed some light on it. So.
And all these things that we do that are revenue drivers, everything that we can monetize, the group chooses very carefully and ensures that they're things that fit with our identity and that we do them in a way that fits with what we believe in very much. So education, for example, we don't do it because we need to do it to make money. I'm an educator by trade, actually. That was what my original degree was in. And early on, I kind of dragged these guys into doing some elementary school presentations and things like that. And we all realized how awesome it was to have those young faces, so pleased just to be there and to enjoy your music, and how much of an impact we could make with we actually perform a lot of new adventurous music for kids, and they love it. And we realized how powerful that was, and so that really turned into a big part of what we do. We've done 2 full-scale week or 2-week-long educational tours, and we've received national awards for our education and things like that. So it is a very big part of it.
So teaching artistry, as we might call it, is sort of a key component to being a modern ensemble.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, Ryan, were you doing education before, or is this something that you've had to sort of develop the skill to do it? Are there certain skills that you think performers need now to connect with audiences in these ways?
Yeah. Well, personally, I sort of have some long-term goals of becoming a teacher, so I wouldn't say I had those skills initially, but Akropolis has been tremendously valuable in helping me develop those. And that has filtered into my own personal endeavors outside of the group too, which is pretty great. And yeah, I think what you suggested is absolutely true, that performers today absolutely need to have more in their skill set than just performing in the art of it. Part of it is going out there and cultivating relationships with communities and students, and helping to create some kind of culture that you can exist in. In fact, I might even go back really quickly. We were talking about a couple of the things that we do to sort of increase our portfolio, to make money, like the CDs or the Akropolis collection, our publishing unit. Those have a direct monetary benefit, but there's almost more value in the way that they help grow the Reed Quintet culture. We realized we couldn't exist in a bubble where, if we're the only Reed Quintet running around in the United, who's going to care at that point? And like I said, the original repertoire that was out there was so scattered. Mm-hmm. We found that once we compiled the collection and made it visible and put it out there, the students in particular really grasped onto that. Maybe 4 years ago, it might have been just us in the United States and a few faculty Reed Quintets at various schools around the country. And today, there are probably
20 to 30
at the very least
that we know of now.
Yeah,
yeah.
Which is kind
amazing.
of cool to think that there are Reed Quintets out there that they exist and we don't even know now because it's just becoming a thing.
For the first time at some of these college residencies that we're doing, we've actually coached a Reed Quintet on music that we have sold, and it's
fabulous.
It's so great to see that come full circle.
That's great.
So it's important for musicians to be able to go out there and actually create, an audience and colleagues.
One more way to cap that off, the different things that we do that we've learned how to monetize. How much of our overall budget they make up isn't really as relevant as the skills that we've learned in doing them, and the different people, every different offering that you have and different monetization method that you have has a different audience and a different way of connecting and networking with people. You're reaching different people with CDs than you are with gigs, and you're usually reaching a more digital audience these days. You're reaching a wider audience, people who live in communities that you may never actually physically get to, and things like that. So.
Yeah.
We talked about that with crowd sourcing or
Right.
crowdfunding, right? That you're raising funds, but you're also raising friends.
Yes.
And that's a big part of it. So so we don't skip the obvious. So a $5 bill comes in and it pays for, well, probably a whole edition, right? They're only $5 a piece.
Right.
Right? So you tear it up into 5 little pieces and you give one to each member of the Reed Quintet.
No.
So what happens to the money when it comes in? Because I think that's probably a practical issue that a lot of ensembles are facing, right? So you have an LLC, you now have a 501c3, so you created an entity that starts making you think about yourself as a business rather than as an ensemble.
Well, the most important thing, you don't need to have a nonprofit at first. You don't need to have an LLC. What you need to have is an approach that the entity, however you want to refer to it, the ensemble, whatever, even if you're a soloist or you're a duo or something like that, or you're not a non-musical production, you're starting a concert series or something like that, that the organization, that organism needs to have its own budget, needs to have its own life force and its own bank account. And if it doesn't have its own bank account, at least some kind of way that you've organized where the funds go centrally. That is not respective of the members, so that when it comes time to do projects, when it comes time to invest, that money's coming from a central source, and you're not having to tear up $5 bills.
So we started very early on and made the decision that all the money that we would take in from the small gigs that we booked when we were, in undergrad, like schools, churches, everything that we didn't pay ourselves for that. We put that money in the separate Akropolis pot, and then it didn't cost the members anything to go to the next gig or to make our first album. It was just kind of this, little generating thing that was in the center of all of us, but didn't cost us individually. So that's how we could grow a lot faster and then eventually start to pay ourselves within the 4th or so year.
And so even when it does come now to paying the members, we don't do that based on gigs. So this gig is X amount of money. Let's take the travel costs and all that out and then divide that up, and boom. We don't do things that way. We do a payout schedule that is based on the overall operating budget and the cash flow, and that's there, and we schedule all those things according to that, not according to just when that check comes in. That's now, and that's just something that we find that works best for us. I think we perform 30 or 40 concerts a year that are the bulk of that revenue. I think touring ensembles that do quite a lot more even touring than we do might actually do it on a gig by gig basis, but that's never been the model that worked for us, and we wouldn't necessarily recommend that for people who are starting up either, because then everybody gets their own individual cuts, and what do you do with it from there? It goes right into my account, and then you want that money back? It's mine now.
And you're kind of forcing the members to take the money out of their own pocket.
So it
to
feels
then
different.
Do
Yeah,
something.
so it certainly
Right.
feels a lot
It
different
does.
that way.
Yeah.
We wanted to get rid of that.
So you've been together for 6 years, 7 years at this point?
This is our 8th.
8th?
Well, it was January 2009, so 9, 10, 11, yeah, so
Yeah.
it's our 8th year, yeah.
8th.
So maybe to wrap up, let's just start with each of you talking about, one of the challenges to sustaining a group, any group really, and what advice you'd have to a young ensemble today that's trying to go a long haul. Because, one of the interesting things we see with a lot of ensembles these days is it takes many, many years to be an overnight success.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work that
Right.
goes into it. And then suddenly you win a competition or you get known and it seems like you came out of nowhere, but in fact there's a lot of
Yes.
a lot of time that's invested. And of course, you graduate from undergrad and a lot of things change, right? You go to grad school, right?
Yeah.
You get married, whatever you want to do. And all those things can pull a group apart.
Yeah.
So it seems like you guys have had a success at sticking together. And what do you think that is? Okay.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us has always been the mindset of, wherever anybody ends up, I mean, we all 5 live all around the country, so we're not based in the same place, is that all 5 of us, we always have that central goal with Akropolis of staying together, but also at the same time, the ensemble understands that the different resources in these different parts of the country that everybody brings to the table is vastly more valuable than if we were stuck in Ann Arbor in a bubble, all 5 of us together.
Mm-hmm.
So that has been a very big realization. We were actually very nervous when Tim was the first one to branch out on his own, and he went off to Yale for his master's and his artist diploma, and we were a little nervous. And then we realized that, oh my gosh, he is making all of these connections, getting Akropolis a lot of great opportunities, and just widening our reach and our
So that
impact.
dispersal increased your network rather than
Exactly.
being a threat.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
it just makes, the 5 of us actually even closer and even, better friends.
Right?
Yeah. And I think it also worked and continues to work because we set things up before it happened to accommodate that. Like we were just talking about how it can be really helpful to have a group bank account that's separate from the individual. Once Tim or I myself live in Florida now, once we all started going in different ways, there's obviously travel costs that are associated with that, and it's a lot more difficult to say, hey, pay your own plane ticket to come here. We all made a group decision that it was going to be important for us to keep playing with each other and not try to replace each other or kind of buckle under the pressure of being in different places. And I think if we hadn't set ourselves up monetarily for that and planned for it and thought about it and how we were going to make it sustainable well before it actually happened, then it would have been a lot more difficult to do so.
I think that the big question that a group is going to want to ask itself, whether or not they move to different places, even if you're not moving to different places, you're going to be moving to different parts of your life, and you're going to be accessing other great opportunities and things like that. But to sit down with the members, whoever it is, and decide what about the group is truly magnetic and keeps people loving it is the most important thing you can do. And then ultimately to say and to make sure that everybody understands that everybody's commitment, overall commitment to the success of that organism is independent of where they are, how much time they put into it, what they do. So Akropolis has different levels of people who do different levels of things and spend different amounts of time, almost vastly different amounts of time, working on different things. But the core values and decisions that we make as a group, and how we are and who we are and what we perform and how we want to grow and what we want to be, those are all made together and are all things that we agree upon deeply. And so we established that pretty early on. Like Ryan said, we had to make all those decisions before the mechanical challenges came up. But that's all that those are. Those are just mechanical. Really, they don't have to do with the life force and the soul of what your organization is. And when you can come to understand those things, and everybody can verbally, or maybe you want to put it on paper, doesn't really matter, commit to that overall success and what that identity is about, you really should have no problem no matter what you do. As a wind group, we accepted early on, like most wind groups do, that you're going to live in different places. You're going to want to have someone who's going to want to, at least one, if not all the members, go teach at a university. And explore those different kinds of things. We've embraced those, and those have made us stronger, and Akropolis has made all of our other personal endeavors stronger as well.
Well, I mean, having had a couple of you in class, it's just a thrill for me just to see you guys out there making things happen and really being
You too,
successful.
Mark.
Thanks so much for coming back to Ann Arbor.
Thanks
Our
very much.
pleasure.
Thanks.
Thank
All
you.
right.